After the absolute insanity that was the Jimmy Butler trade news last night, the Golden State Warriors might not be done ahead of the NBA trade deadline, which is in just a couple of hours. Absolutely insane that Mike Dunleavy and this front office might be making more moves after bringing in Jimmy Butler and going all in on a championship pursuit for Steph and Draymond. All that and more in just a minute. But first, I got to give you guys a heads up that we're going live on the channel at 10 a.m. Pacific. A little after this video will be released, we will be live on Golden State Warriors today, so make sure you are subscribed. We'll be live 2 hours before the trade deadline. We'll react to any other moves that Golden State may make and all the other moves around the NBA, because there's going to be a lot. This has been the craziest trade deadline ever, so lock us in as your number one spot this trade deadline for your Golden State Warriors and for the rest of the season. If you're a diehard Warriors fan, you're going to want to subscribe to the channel. All right, so when I released my initial video detailing this Jimmy Butler trade, I'm not going to lie, I didn't even have all the details yet. And I figured I'd be remiss if I didn't give them all to you right here. Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. The Heat would receive Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker, Kyle Anderson, and the protected first-round pick. We'll talk about that protection in just a moment. Lindy Waters III goes to Detroit with Josh Richardson from the Heat and a second-round pick. And the Utah Jazz received Dennis Schroeder in exchange for sending PJ Tucker to the Miami Heat. So a wild mega deal, and it's not even all ironed out yet. It definitely hurts to see Andrew Wiggins go, as well as Kyle Anderson, who we had high hopes for, and Lindy, who made a couple of big shots, and Schroeder, who we had faith in when he got traded as well. But Wiggins is obviously the biggest loss. Get your 22s down in the comment section for Wiggs. He's a Warrior for life. He's been through a ton, and he won this team a title. Shout out to him. But Golden State has acquired Jimmy Butler. And talking about that protected first-round pick, it is a top 10 protected pick in 2025. And then next year, it's also top 10 protected. Say the Warriors make the postseason. That pick does not convey to Miami, or it does convey to Miami. Then it's just done, right? Like if Golden State just decides to tank, or after they lost the Utah Jazz last night with their G League squad, ridiculous. But if the pick goes to Miami this year, then that's the end of it. If Golden State somehow falls in the top 10 of the draft this year, it will go back to a top 10 protected pick next year. If that happens again, it becomes an unprotected first-round pick in 2027 when Jimmy Butler's contract is up. Absolutely insane. And that's kind of what we have to talk about next. Is what I reacted to in the second half of that initial video is Jimmy Butler is getting a big-time contract extension, and it's the new number reported. It was a misprint by Shams originally in the news. $112 million, $55 million or $54 million next season, and $58 million in 2026, 2027. So Jimmy's going to be here for the duration of Steph's contract, the duration of Steve Kerr's contract, what looks like the duration of the rest of Draymond Green's career. This is going to be insane. This is the push that they're making. And you know what? Hats off to Mike Dunleavy, and hats off to the front office for actually taking the swing and going out and making it happen. Because that's what you had to do, right? Like, who was going to be the better player than Jimmy Butler to go out there and acquire over the rest of the season at this deadline? Obviously, things fell through with Durant. Just 24 hours ago, we're talking about Durant. And now Jimmy Butler is a Warrior, and we're focusing on more moves maybe thereafter. But what other player this free agency cycle? The names weren't hot. And what about next year? There's no guarantee a star asks out. It's crazy. So thank you to this front office. Thank you, Dunleavy, for going all in for Steph and Draymond. And Steph actually had a comment about acquiring Jimmy and the fit. Remember, because they had concerns about his personality heading into Golden State and joining this locker room with all the antics that he's had in Miami this season. Steph said this: him signing an extension is big, knowing he's committed for this next little run. Only 2 more years after this on the contract for Steph. So Steph also said it'll look different than what we're used to. He can play, I'm sure, a little bit of motion, but he's a shot creator, a finisher. And he said, I'm going to watch a lot of Miami film to see some of the sets they like to run for him. So they seem to be buying in to Jimmy Butler here, and he kind of seems to be buying in himself. Already changed the Instagram bio as well. He said from Tombull all the way to the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy seems bought in, and he better be. We'll talk about that in just a second. But I got to get you guys showing some love down in the comment section. Welcome Jimmy Butler to Golden State. Show some love to the new acquisition and, honestly, a new focal point of this Warriors offense. Give me some JBs down in the comment section. Wish we had his definite jersey number, but who knows? It could be 21, 22. Didn't want to do anything. Put those 22s in the comments for Andrew Wiggins, though. We're going to miss him big time. Get those JBs, though, down below. He better be bought in for $112 million. You gave him a damn near supermax, and he better be bought in. He better be uber motivated to play with this roster and compete for a championship. And maybe if things don't happen in this first season, he better not sour on them heading into 25, 26. You're getting paid way too much to throw these fits that you've been throwing in Miami over the past couple of years. So, and Steph acknowledged that. He said, I know there was a lot of drama down there in Miami. Who really knows what the story is? We have to expect a motivated, committed Jimmy. And he said Butler texted a pleasant message back after Curry texted Butler at halftime to welcome him. And it was a crazy kind of announcement. Steve Kerr cleared out the locker room, players only, and announced the trade in front of all of them. It was insane. This all came together super fast, but this is what the Warriors lineup could look like now with Jimmy Butler in tow. Steph, Jimmy, Kuminga when he comes back from the injury, he's ramping up workouts on the court, Draymond, and TJD potentially at the center position. But honestly, man, this lineup is good. I don't know if it's great, and the reason why I don't know if it's great is because the spacing scares me. Jimmy's not a high volume or high efficiency 3-point shooter. Neither is Kuminga. Draymond's not a high volume shooter, even though he can knock him down. He's not taking 5-6 a game. He's more in the 2 to 3 range. Like this, you got to be able to shoot threes and shoot them at a high clip and a high volume in today's NBA, and that lineup doesn't necessarily do that so well. So in my opinion, Golden State might need to make another move before this deadline hits in a couple of hours. Like, this team feels a little bit incomplete to me. I think that trading for Jimmy is one move, but they do have something else up their sleeve. There's still trade assets on this roster that can create a deal for Golden State to go out there and still improve, and maybe still improve that starting lineup. That's what we'll talk about in just a moment, right? Next move after Jimmy Butler's trade. Anthony Slater has some thoughts as to where Golden State might go next. You know, the biggest Warriors insider in the game. We'll talk about his comments and speculate on what move Golden State's going to make in just a moment. But first, I got to give a major shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports platform with over 10 million active members. And that's because it's daily fantasy made easy. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 player stat projections and just pick more or less. And Prize Picks is always trying to hook you guys up with incredible deals. Not only can you win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, but they're going to give you a free $50 in your account when you place your first $5 entry and use our promo code right here, right down there, CLNS. And when the big game comes around this weekend, there's a free square up there for you guys to use right now. Patrick Mahomes, more than half a passing yard. Take advantage of that deal, because if you pair it up with another one in the big game or a basketball pick or any other sport pick of your choice, you're already halfway to winning 3x your money on Prize Picks. So take advantage of that and download the Prize Picks app today. Use our promo code CLNS for $50 instantly when you play your first $5 entry. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, now, Warriors making more moves before the deadline. I can't make any more moves after the deadline unless it's a buyout move. But Anthony Slater has the latest on what Golden State might be willing to pursue here with just a few hours to go until the deadline. And that's the way that's gonna happen is with the expiring salaries that they have on their roster right now. Here's what Slater had to say about Golden State's pursuits potentially after a Butler deal. So Golden State still has pieces to work with before Thursday's deadline. Guard Gary Payton II and big man Kevon Looney represent more than $17 million of expiring contracts with which the Warriors could make another deal. A shooting big man was next on their list. Chicago center Nikola Vucevic has been on their radar. Man, this ain't over yet. I seriously think Dunleavy's still working the phones, and specifically working the phones with Chicago, who we know Golden State has been in contact with throughout this whole trade cycle. And is Vucevic worth making a deal for right now? I think so, because you need to be able to stretch the floor. Vuce is a floor spacer. He can run the pick and pop, and you know what? Run a little bit of a two-man game with Jimmy Butler. He's not necessarily conducive to a motion offense. He's been a back-to-the-basket guy for most of his career, but he's a floor spacer, and that's what Golden State needs, an offensive big to pair up with the plethora of defense they had. You know, talking about that lineup that was on screen a couple of minutes ago. Like, defensively, this group is awesome. Like they can switch so often between Jimmy and Kuminga and Draymond. Like, those are 3 elite defenders that you can have not only on the perimeter and at the rim. 3 are dogs, and they can all get up. So Vooch is the player that you kind of use to complement that, right? Like, he's not a defender, not a rim protector, but he's an offensive guy who could fill up the stat sheet on a nightly basis. A walking 20 and 10, and he only makes $20 million a year. So GP2 and Looney only making 17. Maybe somehow you get a third team involved. Can Golden State take an extra $3 million? I don't think so. They only have, I believe, $1.9 million in created salary after the trade was made for Jimmy Butler. But there's another way that they can get this done. They may find another cheap contract on their books and send him away for Vooch, maybe make it a 3-team deal. Who knows? But the reason this is actually still a possibility, in my opinion, is because of this tweet from Mark Stein just a couple of days ago, where he said league sources say that the Warriors did seriously have explored trade conversations with the Chicago Bulls that would have brought both Zach LaVine and Vucevic to the Bay Area before Golden State opted to focus on other trade pursuits. Well, they did focus on another trade pursuit. They brought in Jimmy Butler, but Butler only makes about $4 million more than Zach LaVine does. So if you were trying to bring in a guy like LaVine and Vucevic at the same time, then what's stopping you from going and pursuing Vooch now after you brought in a guy who's only $4 million more? You can make the money work in some capacity, and I think this is definitely something that's still on Golden State's radar. And I mentioned that Vooch is a floor spacer, but I'm not going to be honest. I'll be honest with you guys. It hasn't looked so good over the past 30 days or so. And January, he's shot a season low by month of 3-point percentage. He's sub 30%, nearly hitting a quarter of his threes. That can't happen if he comes to Golden State. Obviously, I think he went 2 for 3 in his one game in February so far. But in the beginning of the season, he was absolute lights out, shooting the leather off the ball, 45, 47, 42. Over the first, 32 games of the season, this guy was a 43% three-point shooter. It was unbelievable, nearly 45. Like, he is a legit player that Golden State should go out there and target. And it's one of those things where, is Jimmy Butler going to be as big of a scoring dominant player as we maybe want him to be, paying him $55 million? Who knows? Probably not. Like, he's not been a guy who's been able to give you 25 consistently over the past couple of seasons. So you got to bring in a guy like Vooch potentially to kind of fill more of a scoring hole. The Warriors are the 19th ranked offense right now. They need to be able to put the ball in the basket at a higher clip, and Vooch can absolutely do that. I love this guy. He's shooting 40% from 3 this year still, even though he has faltered over the past month or so. He's going to be a big piece if Golden State will make a move for him, and I don't think they're going to have to give up too much. Answer it in the comments for me, though. Should the Warriors make another move, and should that move be Nikola Vucevic? Type T for trade, type P for pass. I'm trying to hear what Dub Nation has to say on bringing a stretch big into the Bay Area. I'm typing my T for trade. I think they absolutely should make this deal, and it's because of this. The Warriors still feel incomplete to me. Like the spacing in that lineup just isn't there. And in today's NBA, like I said, you need to be able to have at least a little bit of a 5-out threat offensively. And you know what? If you have Steph, Jimmy, Kuminga, Draymond, and Vooch, that does give you a bit of a 5-out threat. All 5 players can attack you from the perimeter, whether it's Jimmy on a dribble drive or Kuminga going downhill or hitting a 3. He was hitting the 3 at a very high clip in the games before his injury. So maybe that's something that is developing over the next, over the season and next. And hopefully Jimmy mentors him into being a better all-around player. And at this point, like, a stretch big has been the priority. Like, they've been talking about it all year long. So go do it. All in means all in. Like, if you don't just trade for Jimmy Butler and then say, all right, we're done now. We're done now. We just gave away 3 players, two of them of which had heavy rotation minutes in this lineup. No. You have to go all in if you're actually serious about it. And if they are, I think that the finals are seriously in play. I mean, you think about a 5 of Steph, Jimmy, Kuminga, Draymond, and Vooch. Like, it stacks up with a lot of lineups at the top of the Western Conference. Like, and then you have TJD off the bench. You have Moody. You have Pods for another ball handler. Like, there is depth now to the Warriors team. You still have Buddy Hield for the shooting off the bench as well if you really want a spaced out lineup. This could actually be a legit chance at a 5th title for Steph and Draymond and a 1st title for Jimmy Butler. I really think that the finals are in play. Competing for the Western Conference is in play because we know how Jimmy Butler can rise in the postseason. We know how Steph can rise in the postseason. And I can't wait for it to unfold. We'll keep you guys updated. And first, we'll keep you guys updated on my Twitter. So hit me up over there at Smitty at CS. Can't wait to talk more Dubs basketball with you guys the rest of this season. And make sure you are subscribed because we'll be live on the channel in 30 minutes after this video goes out. So lock us in. Or no, maybe 2.5 hours after this video goes out. I'm tweaking. We'll be live for the trade deadline, 10 o'clock Pacific time, so subscribe, turn on your notifications, and lock us in as your #1 source for Golden State Warriors news, trade rumors, updates, all that jazz and more. Well, guys, we'll have you guys covered all season long. Lock us in. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.